Hello and welcome to the Tillage Edge with me, Shay, Phelan. This is your regular update for all your tillage news and advice. The broken weather has led to a stop-start harvest with different levels of progress around the country. So I caught up with 3 advisors out there to see how the harvest is progressing in their areas. I spoke to Conor Kavanagh in Tipperary, to John Brophy in Louth, but first I spoke to Ciaran Hickey to see how things were progressing in County Wexford.
Very difficult at the moment. Like, the weather is very broken, and in the age of precision farming and where we have so much control over everything, it really highlights the one thing we don't have control of is the weather. Now, the earliest spring barley around here, there was malting barley delivered to Kavanagh's from that side. You're talking the Claham and Ballycarney kind of area there, which would be early country, but that was at the end of July. So, you know, like, to be cutting spring barley in July was
unusual.
But yeah, it just goes to show you, but it's some spread, like, you know, like, we're now on, what is it, the 18th of August, like, so I'd say, like, we're harvesting for the last 3 weeks, but which is unheard of around here, because normally with the kind of firepower that is around this area now, you know, it has become a very dragged out affair enough, you know. So the crop that has made the most progress out of the current cutting would be the malting barley,
right.
And there was kind of 2 main sowing dates. So the dry ground was sown, you know, at the very start of March, kind of 8th of March, in around that, and the next sowing date was kind of the 22nd to the 26th of March, and then there was another little bit then, which was, you know, the very end of March into the first week of April.
In terms of what percentage of the barley is cut malting barley versus wheat, what do you think you are?
Yeah, so up until about 2 days ago, like last week, I remember talking to both big malting barley intakes, and Doyle's were on about 15% because the ground over that side would be a little bit, and then Kavanagh's were on about 30%. But the way it's happening here at the moment is 2 days could double that.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of, so I would imagine we're probably about maybe halfway, maybe a little bit more on the malt. The feed side of things, slower. Wheat is very slow.
Right, okay.
They're just not making progress around here with wheat because moistures are
too high.
I was talking to one person, you know, and he said they were cutting the other day. Now they have a dryer, but they needed to get a feel out of it, and it was 26% moisture.
Right, okay.
Yesterday, now we had a spell of good weather, and there was a guy local here to the office, and he was cutting, and it was 19%. The KPH was 74%. So, like, yeah. So just moistures are a problem,
back,
you know?
yeah. And this weather's not really suiting wheat either, because there's no real drying in the.
That's the problem, yeah. And the ground. Look, Conor and John will comment on this, but, like, you know, the ground has gone moist enough even for this area, and you know how free draining the soil is around here. But, like, you know, you'd see a bit of clay coming in on the trailers, like, out of the field, like, you know. So they're just, you know, go back to winter barley time where it was 29 degrees and you were terrified that, you know, something was going to go up in the field, to the stage now where, you know, there's no sun. You're trying to operate in no sun.
Which is making things tricky. I'm going to move to Conor, Ciaran. Conor, in Tipperary, how are things going in Tipperary? You have a lot of early sown stuff down there too, I think, haven't you?
Yeah, a lot of I suppose the early sown barley there was particularly for malting barley. I suppose there's probably 50 to 60% of the spring malting barley cut, and probably around maybe 40 to 50% of the spring feed barley cut. The winter wheat, kind of a different story, kind of similar to Ciaran down in Wexford. It's back around maybe the 35% of the winter wheat in the county is cut, but what has been cut to date has been yielding very well, and also grain quality has been very good.
And some, I presume, the likes of oats, winter oats and oilseed rape are finished at this stage down your way, Conor, are they?
Yeah. Obviously, all winter barley, winter oats, and winter oilseed rape has been cut at this stage, and farmers have been very happy, and merchants, with the quality of the grain coming into them this year.
Good. And quickly, John, up to you then. What way are things progressing? You're normally that bit later up around Drogheda and Louth and Meath. What way are things progressing up your neck of the woods?
Yeah, things are progressing slowly, I suppose, maybe a little bit slower than what has been down the south, you know, like the winter barley is done, lads have been very happy with yields and moistures and that. But I suppose once that was done, then you got a very quick slow down. The oil seed rape at this stage is almost done, but there's probably still a small bit left to be done. Yields were varying, I suppose, on that, but overall, lads were happy enough. Moisture's come in very good.
And I was up your way on Monday evening, John, and there seemed to be very little winter wheat cut up your neck of the woods. Is that still the case, or what way is it now?
Yeah, that's still the case. Like the last couple of days haven't been hectic. Moistures are still remaining high in wheat. You know, maybe 21% moisture. Lads have been holding off on it, hoping maybe the weather will improve. I think maybe there was a promise of good weather there this week, and lads were hoping it was going to come, but it's been very slow to take up. So they still have yet to get out to do it. Spring barley the same, is slow. There's a small bit of spring barley cut maybe up the county on the lighter side, especially maybe malting barley. But that's as much as has been done on that as well. Yields seem to be good on the malting barley, and it's passing for malting at the minute. Now, there's not much malting in the area, but definitely wheat now. They can't wait to get going. And
you're just saying about yields, John. I know there's some reports of some fantastic yields down the country. Are you seeing good yields up your neck of the woods?
We are, yeah. Like I suppose a little bit early to tell, you know, maybe with not that much wheat cut. But I'm hearing guys talk maybe around 4.5 ton, maybe on the wheat, maybe 4 up to 4.5 ton. I'd say the rape probably maybe 1.8 ton, or maybe some of the backward crops that maybe got badly beaten due to weather and the cold, and maybe pigeons there earlier on in the year maybe struggled, maybe they're 1.2.
And bushels and proteins and all that are okay up your neck of the woods?
Yeah, the wheat's there so far on it. As I said, it's early to say, but maybe bushel in around 75 on the wheat. The barleys are at 65. Spring barleys, it's early to tell yet as well as to where bushels are with that. Proteins, just on a small bit on the malting, they have been passing for protein.
Good. And down your neck of the woods, Conor, what way are yields? And I'm hearing some particularly good wheat yields, I think, coming down your neck of the woods. How are yields going your way?
Yeah, I suppose, look, in winter barley obviously done very well. Any place that was practicing a good rotation or after a break crop was doing probably 4 to 4.5 ton, which was exceptional, with moistures coming in kind of anywhere between kind of 12 to 17%, which is very good. But continuous winter barley ground was back a small, maybe 3.7 to 3.8 tons. But similar again, the quality of the grain was very good. I suppose the spring barley then, I suppose, look, there's big variation between spring barley. Is there any kind of from 2.75 up to 4? But I'd say it's probably going to average in around maybe 3 to 3.325 tons, which would be good. There's been absolutely no issue with any of the barley so far passing for malting. If proteins are coming in kind of slightly lower than would have been expected, around kind of 8.7 to 9.5. Then I suppose the winter wheat, then I suppose farmers are very happy with winter wheat this year. It's yielding very well, anywhere kind of from 4.25 up to nearly 5.5 tons. I'd say it's probably going to average over 4.75 tons. And the oilseed rape then similar to John up in the northeast. Any of the crops that kind of got hampered or got affected by the weather were down around kind of 1.2 to 1.3. But some of the better crops are yielding up around kind of 2 to 2.2 tons. But I say the winter oilseed rape will come in around maybe 1.7 tons.
So most lads are happy down your neck of the woods of what's happening so far, anyway.
Yeah, they have been very happy, and even winter oats. Then I suppose, surprisingly, some of the winter oats has done over 4 tons this year, which would be exceptionally well. But I'd say it's probably averaging around maybe 3.7, 3.75.
Good. And is a similar picture in Wexford, Ciaran?
Yeah, the what Conor was saying there about the value of rotation, definitely ground has had a huge effect this year. Like anywhere you were close to, let's say, fresh land, let it be grass or let it be beans or rape or organic manures, they just seem to have that little bit of extra thump in them, you know, that particularly in winter barley and you know, just you could see the value of that compared to, let's say, continuous type ground, you know. The big, I suppose, shock around here is, and it's not it's mainly a malt and barley area, but you know, there is a share of winter oats being grown, mainly due to kind of people being offered contracts, different kind of equine oats, this kind of stuff, and but the oats has done really, really well, and we weren't really expecting it because, as the lads were saying there, like the weather, you know, there was quite a bit of cold weather here, and very dry conditions in April, and you were wondering, you know, what crops were going to fare out the best. And given that oats is prone to, you know, it doesn't like stress or whatever and all that, but it seemed to come through that kind of period really well. And but like there's lots of 4 tons of winter oats, which is really, really unusual for this area. Like I know maybe over towards Tip and that they would generally get very good yields of oats, but not in this area. But that was probably the biggest
highlight,
pleasant surprise so far. And And
I'm hearing
really
good yields of malt and barley down your neck of the woods in places as well. Is that true?
Yeah, but the only thing I'd say about that is the start, brilliant, you know, but you're talking about the big difference in barley this year in our area was the stuff that was sown on the 8th of March. It took 2 weeks for that to come up. And like the lads have mentioned it already, the impact of hardship on crops and everything like that. But those early sown crops on dry ground, they came up very quickly. They kind of got going before the cold weather really had a massive impact on them. The next sown date, which was around the 25th of March, that took 3.5 weeks to come up, and even slower for the April sown. You can see that in the crops as you walk through them to this day. The stuff that was sown in March, early March, got a chance to tiller. You're sitting on the combine, the header is full. You know, you're looking at this big bout of straw behind the combine. The later the sown is, and as a guy said to me one day, you could ride a bike through that April sown stuff and you wouldn't leave a track behind you, and it's the truth. So we're seeing a range from like the very high, like 4.25, 4.4 for some of the very early sown spring barley. Fantastic. And everybody said, wow, this is going to be amazing. As you moved into that kind of 20th of March stuff, more like 3.3, 3.4, a bit like what Conor was saying there and John up in the northeast, kind of a good average. You'd be very happy with it. Then that April sown stuff, a couple of the guys that are doing non-inversion as well, where the ground was slow to dry out, and they were, you know, they was later for them again, and they kind of got hitting the double whammy then. But some of them crops were very thin, and when they got going, they just shot straight through the tillering phase and they stayed thin. Quality really good, but like you'll be dipping under the tree there for some of those crops.
Right.
So it's a big range.
And in terms of wheat, any reports of wheat yields down there yet?
We're very slow on the wheat, but you know what's coming in. I think that weather might have affected the wheat in this area. Like it's going to be good. Like there's going to be very good 4s, but I don't know if we're going to see many of the 5s or that kind of stuff, you know. And you'd be kind of hopeful that the wheat is going to do well. But I don't think. I think. Look, it's very rare in this area or in any area where you have good yields and good price. So I'd say good lads are happy enough. The thing now is there's less talk about yield at the moment and quality and everything. The whole talk is about getting it into the shed. You know, it's a very catchy harvest and a lot to play for.
Yeah, which kind of brings me on to kind of the next question I was going to ask you about. Are there any issues out there in terms of lodging, sprouting yet, or are there any varieties that are sticking out in your mind that have done particularly well this year, do you think?
Well, the one thing I would say here, and maybe the lads will come in on this as well, because I had kind of said Cassia, I had confined it to the back in the dock as such. You know, we're finished with that, and it's the variety. I don't know, and you should be nearly saying, God, you shouldn't really be sowing that because it's disease prone and everything and the whole lot. But you have the good year, and it does the business. You know, and it just seemed to have, you know, and we have Belfry, which as a 6-year-old did brilliant. Craft, which is the malt one, did really, really well in the area. And the casting and Valerie did well. But like for something that was parked up, next thing all of a sudden it comes out and just the quality was off the chart. And brilliant straw, and yeah, so that was a bit of a kind of a, maybe I shouldn't have been so shocked, but yeah, kind of for a variety that was slipping off the edge. Yeah, just really, that was a bit of a surprise.
And in terms of any issues out there, is there much problems with lodging or sprout? I was in a field of wheat some of
the 6 rows got a bit hairy there coming towards the end of it, like, you know, of the winter barley. I don't know what the lads were finding up in the areas, but yeah, it was just, I tell you what was happening was it was leaned over, and as you were driving into it with the combine, do you know that the kind of gap at the side and under the reel, it was nearly like you were dragging half the field, which if you got into a kind of a sway of stuff lying in one area, like, you know, so it was hard old cutting. Like, you wouldn't, you know, you'd want a fair machine now to be doing 4 or 4.5 kilometers an hour, you know, like you had to go easy, and that was it. But big amounts of straw, and great yields and everything, so you don't mind it too much. But yeah, definitely. The other thing as well is we had a cold period when the turple went on the winter barley, and in some cases, because there were very low crops, some crops didn't get turple at all, and they just seemed to bounce back. There was a little bit of a bounce back then afterwards, and some of the crops got quite tall and leggy in themselves, and they did sit over a bit. But in general, harvesting conditions have been very good, and as I say, that's not really the talking point. It's the catchy nature of the harvest.
Just getting them in.
Yeah. One of the things that was new in this area before we move on to the straw scheme was Joyu and BYDV, and the whole, like, we saw no BYDV this year, but you know, a couple of years ago it was the big talking point because it definitely hit winter barley nationally and definitely in this area. But Joyu, there was a bit more of it around this area this year, and I was looking at a couple of crops of it, and it seemed we had about, I think in April, about 20 kind of severe frosts, and there was a few blank grains in it, and you know, and I hadn't seen it down in Kildalton the day we were down there, but definitely was more pronounced up in this area, and the frost must have just hit it at flowering or whatever. So there was quite a few little grains gone that hadn't fertilized. The heads looked a bit short as well, you know, and like what John was saying there, some of them looked a bit thin as well. And look, at the jury was out until the combine arrived in the field, and yeah, it has done well. And there was one crop I was following that specifically, now it was in a good slot in the rotation, and Conor has mentioned that already and the value of that. But this was first winter barley, and it was cut between 12 and 15% moisture, 62 to 65 kph, which was fantastic, and it did 4.8 tons to the acre. And the straw, there was 8 8x4x3s, which is, you know, 16 round bales of straw. So Joyu, and I asked that man, you know, because I kind of got the feeling, would you grow it again? And he was kind of, yeah, we'll see. The seed order's gone in, you know. And it's really because, now he sowed that very early days, September, you know, like, which he was saying, you know, look, he wouldn't even dream of, you know, middle of October for everything else, but he just had a slot for this, and take all wasn't to be an issue. So one thing I would say is, where lads have a first something where take all is not going to be an issue and they're worried about BYDV, people will look at this Joyu now. It's something that's there, like, you know.
Down your country, Conor, I was down your way a while ago, and I saw quite a bit of spring barley leaning over. Has it lodged, or has it managed to stay standing, or is there any other issues, any other crops down there?
There's been very, very small amounts of lodging, nowhere near the same as last year, thankfully. But I'd say some crops, maybe if they were 5 to 10% lodged, is about as much. Similar to winter wheat, there's a very small percentage of that after going down. But in terms of sprouting, there seems to be no issue yet that any crops that were gone down a small bit were kind of the earlier ones to be cut.
Right, okay.
So there was no real issue with sprouting. But as I said already, grain quality on the winter wheat and spring barley has been excellent to date.
So there's no issues with sprouting then, really.
No,
and has there been any varieties that have stood out in your mind that guys are kind of very happy with?
I suppose, yeah, similar to Ciaran there in Wexford. Some of the newer two-row varieties, the likes of Valerie and LG Hastings, have performed quite well. They seem to have yielded very well, grain quality excellent, and also good volume of the straw. And I suppose, look, you still have your 6 rows there with Belfry and Bazooka, which have both yielded quite well.
And up your area, John, anything that stands out in your mind up there that guys should be looking out for next year in terms of varieties and that?
No, similar to the boys. Castings seem to have done well, and I know I have seen maybe areas maybe her castings maybe was affected by the frost earlier on, and despite that, it done well, which was a surprise, I suppose, to see. Probably the lodging, there wasn't big issues with lodging on winter barley, but as Ciaran was saying, the 2 rows versus the 6 rows definitely Bazooka, especially maybe it got an extra bit of nitrogen or maybe a lack of grow regular because of the cold. Definitely it went down all right in places. But other than that, they were fine. I know oilseed rape similar as well. Maybe some of the backward crops, there was a small little bit of lodging there where they just kind of more fell over more so than anything else, but it seemed to be an issue at harvest time. The wheats in general done fairly well now up this way. I suppose maybe going forward, looking at wheat, you're probably really looking at varieties that's going to resistant to rust. I know the northeast would be a lot of rust, and I suppose that seemed to be more North Dublin maybe than Louth. But then maybe that might be down some of it was down to the selection of varieties, and maybe somewhere guys maybe had like JB Diego, or Bennington, we had rust, like, whereas some of the others there, the Conross or the Graham or Costello seemed to be very good. And even the Graham done well this year, is doing well this year, looks well at the minute anyway. I suppose we won't know till the harvest is over. The Costello earlier on, I was looking a little bit thin itself. Just if the vigor wasn't there, but once it got going, it seemed to do very well. I know one issue that's cropping up is probably not maybe for next year, it's for this year that lads have spoke about there, maybe caught some lads by surprise. It's just winter barley in storage after the good weather and the heat of the barley going in. It seems to be a bit of an issue there, trying to keep it from heating. Guys are keeping air on it there the whole time, and they probably maybe caught guys by surprise because of the good weather. So I know that is an issue there currently there with a few lads that are trying to just keep air on it just to keep the temperature down.
Well, look, the guys, one of the talking points over the last couple of months has been the impact of the straw incorporation scheme on straw demand in the different areas. So, John, I suppose starting with you, you're probably the closest to most of the markets up there. What way have straw yields been, and has there been much of an increased demand on the back of the straw incorporation scheme, do you think?
Yeah, there has been an increased demand, and I suppose straw yields have been good. Lads are looking at maybe 12 up to 14 round bales, maybe up to 16 bales an acre. And I know straw has been bad. The straw has the yields are good, but the demand is there. I suppose prices are up around €20 a bale for a 4x4 round bale. Of course, being near the markets, it's that shorter of a draw, so it's probably going to be easy pickings for anyone coming down and getting loads from Louth. Barley straw was looking very good, like it was golden. Just to drive the roads, like anyone buying straw, like that's what they wanted. So they're going to be definitely trying to pick out that as their first purchase of straw. Just looking at that lovely golden colour that you'd have. Maybe things might maybe slacking back a little bit now, maybe when we get into maybe spring barley straw that.
Yeah, so it should be good. Should be an ample supply of it around.
Should be an ample supply. Like the other thing that's probably going to drive prices a little bit as well is, I know maybe on wheat and straw side of that is the mushroom side of the house, for composting, because of scarcity there, maybe for of peat moss and that. They're looking at straw, and it has been an issue there this year that I know, talking to a few farmers, they managed to sell maybe bales of straw that's had there for a couple of years, even round bales going for the mushroom side of things.
Okay. And Conor, what way is it down your neck of the woods? Have yields of straw held up, and has the demand increased, or is it much the same as normal, do you think?
Yeah, in terms of the winter barley shade, there's been a very good demand. As John said, straw quality was excellent. It was baled in very good condition, and they didn't stay on the fields for too long. They were snapped up fairly quick. somewhere in the region between 12 to 16 of your standard 4x4 round bales. Probably straw yields probably back a small bit on previous years where people would have been getting higher straw volumes off some of the 6 rows and the hybrid barleys, but back a small bit, but still good quality golden straw. I suppose look south of the county there, where I suppose to be probably more tillage, probably going from somewhere between 16 to 20 euro for a round bale out of the field, and say in North Tipperary then closer to the west of Ireland, you're probably looking at kind of anything from 20 to 25 euro for your round bale out of the field, which is good. In terms of spring barley and winter oaten straw, there's a lot of that on the ground at the minute that hopefully the fine weather that they're given next week will give lads a chance to get a lot of that baled. But from talking to a lot of farmers, a lot of that straw is sold out of the field already once they have it baled. So there has been good demand for straw to date, and I suppose the straw quality has been very good. In terms of the straw incorporation scheme, there was good uptake in Tipperary, especially for say oaten straw and oilseed rape straw. So it's not going to have a massive impact on your barley or wheaten straw, but it has definitely pushed on the demand for straw. Okay,
and Ciaran, Wexford is traditionally a county that doesn't see huge demand for straw. What's it like this year down there?
Yeah, and as John said, he's closest to the market. We're the furthest away from the market. But on the straw incorporation measure, as Conor mentioned there, we had very high uptake on it for a couple of reasons. One, we've a lot of long-term tillage ground that's receiving no organic matter, and when the scheme came along, people kind of jumped at it, and particularly people as well with the 3-crop rule that had started a rotation on the farm. So it was great that oilseed rape was in the scheme. Virtually all the oilseed rape I'd have on my books went into the scheme. As I said to you, we've seen oats come in as well, and virtually all the oats is being chopped as well. Some of the wheat and straw, but the mushroom is a good market, and they were active, both farmers and the mushroom buyers. So that to a lesser degree, and most of the spring barley straw has been baled and being sold. And what I would say is that the straw incorporation measure, I don't think it has driven prices. What it has done though is focused deals. Buyers are more active. They're not leaving it on the long finger. They're going out. And in fairness, I think a lot of the tillage farmers kind of recognized that, if I have a good buyer and someone that's there every year, I'm going to look after that person. And there was a lot of that. And in fairness, I'd have to say that it was great that the scheme came along. Not an easy thing to bring in a straw chopping scheme open to such a wide range of straw, and still it managed to work. So now the big thing I'd say as well, and I was delighted with it, was tillage farmers want to support it. They'd like to see it again. And I've had very few people that have opted to come out of it. One where there was a genuine case of just miscommunication and the person needed the straw. And it was very early doors when this was taken out. But when they're committed, one lad said to me, my straw is sold. It's sold to the department, and it stuck to it, in fairness. So yeah, look at it. It's great. But similar to the lads, deals being done, straw on the ledge sold at 15 euros a bale, 3 euros to bale at 18 euros a bale. You might get to 20, but like 18 to 20 for a standard 4x4. Similar kind of yields to what the lads are saying there, and little bit variable on the winter barley as well. I'd say, like what Conor was saying there, yields back a little bit, but but look, they're happy enough. I know I'm like a broken record. If they could get it cut now, it'd be great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Listen, guys, we're going to leave it at that. Listen, thanks for your time. Thanks, Conor. Thanks, Ciaran, and thanks, John, for taking the time today.
Thanks, Shay.
And Shay.
So that's it for the Tillage Edge, and my thanks to Conor, to Ciaran, and to John for their reports from around the country. As the harvest is in full swing, remember to keep safety at the top of your agenda, and to make sure that everybody on the farm is kept safe during this busy period. So don't forget, if you like this podcast, then recommend it to a friend or colleague. And as always, rate, review and subscribe on Apple Podcast or Spotify so you never miss an episode. And for further information, log on to teagasc.ie. I'm Shay Phelan, thanks for listening, and I'll be back again next week with more tillage news and advice.